Welcome to Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership, the weekly podcast that features the very best in career development in the nonprofit sector. I'm your host, Patton McDowell, and in addition to podcasting, I'm a leadership coach, a strategy and fundraising consultant, a speaker, and an author. And yes, I hope you might check out my book, also titled Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership. If you'd like a copy, just check out our webpage, pattonmcdowell.com, and you can get access to any of our programs, resources, and, of course, the book itself. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I know you're going to enjoy this episode's conversation with Eric Mitchell, who brings great experience and a global leadership perspective because he's the executive director of the Alliance to End Hunger. Now, Eric is doing remarkable work mobilizing a network of companies, nonprofits, foundations, and individuals to address the fundamental challenge of food insecurity, not just in the U.S., but all around the world. Now, while you're going to enjoy many takeaways as Eric describes his approach to leadership and the multiple levels of management required at an organization like his, you'll also appreciate the singular focus he brings to getting to the root cause of whatever your nonprofit organization's mission is, and not just treating the symptoms. Again, after this episode, I'm confident you're going to rethink how advocacy might play a greater part in the work you do at your nonprofit organization. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode. It's number 164. Just go to the new podcast page at pattonmcdowell.com, and you'll find more information on Eric and the great work he's doing at the Alliance to End Hunger, as well as some bonus book recommendations, so stay tuned for those as well. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Eric Mitchell. Eric, thank you for joining me on the path.
Thank you, Patton, for asking me to be here. I'm happy to be with you today.
I'm excited about this conversation, Eric. You've had a fantastic career in a variety of sectors leading to your current nonprofit leadership. But something that struck me about your work is not only are you doing important work at the Alliance to End Hunger, but you're particularly focused on advocacy. And I wonder if that's something you see that a lot of nonprofit leaders maybe aren't advocating in ways that they could or should. So maybe let's start with that. What do you think about that advocacy topic?
Yeah, sure. I think it's great. And to be honest, a lot of leaders, a lot of nonprofit leaders, they're doing they're wearing so many hats. Especially depending on the size of the organization, they could be the chief development officer, the chief executive officer, and the driver, if you will, for services and things within the organization. So understanding all the different hats that they wear, trying to follow policies and specific laws that are impacting the work that they're doing, that impacts the communities that they're trying to serve, isn't necessarily something that's on the top of their mind. But I do think it's important as leaders to be aware of particularly the policies that are not only impact your organization, but the policies that policies that can impact the communities that you're here to serve as nonprofit leaders. And then most importantly, thinking about what you as a leader, what you as an organization can do to help change some of those policies for maybe either to make them better or to make sure those policies go away so that particularly the communities that you're here to serve are able to live fruitful lives. So I think from that standpoint, that is why I think it's important for nonprofit leaders to really be strong advocates for their organizations and for their cause.
That's so well put. And I guess specifically, Eric, they need to put in their job description. I'm guessing your job description, which we'll talk about in a minute, literally has that as a component. But I feel like a lot of our nonprofit colleagues are like, hey, Eric, I'm busy. I'm just trying to get through the day. But you're saying we still need to carve out time for both the education and the advocacy work?
Yes, definitely. And I think, most leaders are very passionate about the work that they're doing. They wouldn't get into these roles if they weren't passionate about whether it's education or whether it's food security and hunger, like what I work on, whether it's environmental justice, criminal justice reform, particularly leaders who are running nonprofit organizations that are focused in these areas, they come in with the passion to wanting to change society, change laws that are impacting those constituencies, those communities in the first place. So they already have a deep heart for this, and probably in certain capacity have already been advocates in certain areas and decided to lead or create their own organization to help uh, help provide a positive impact. It's just that, they sometimes don't know, well, how do we get our foot in the door? We don't have a
Yeah.
lobbying shop. We don't have
Yeah.
a policy background. What is it that we can do to, particularly in the lane that I live in, which deals with government relations and advocacy, what do we do to engage public officials to do better, if you will?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I like to do is talk about the coalition building and working with groups who have like mind, like mission, and that the more diverse the group can be, even the better. So often I try to tell folks is that you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
It takes more than just one group or one organization or one anything to really move the needle in any capacity. And so figure out where some of those coalitions, some of those groups that you could be a part of to help you amplify the work you're doing, but also help amplify the message that you're trying to convey.
Yeah, love that. In fact, I had a question for you, and you've already touched on it, that you've been very skilled at kind of relationship building and the power of networks in just about any cause. All of our friends in nonprofit leadership, regardless of the cause, there's likely a network that can support them. But before we get into that more, Eric, for those listeners who don't know, tell us about the Alliance to End Hunger. Tell us about the organization you lead right now.
So the Alliance to End Hunger, we are a coalition of national organizations. We work with over 100 corporations, nonprofits, including anti-hunger organizations, faith-based organizations. We have universities who are members, as well as foundations, and some individuals who are all committed to ending hunger, not only here in the United States, but around the world. And so we are a national advocacy organization. Our main audience is Congress, is the United States Congress,
Yep.
for the House and Senate, as well as the administration. And we work on policies that impact hunger and malnutrition, not only here in the United States, but globally. So we're advocating with Congress as it relates to pushing for better child nutrition programs here in the States, improving access to quality food here in the United States, as well as ensuring that the root causes of hunger are also addressed, whether it's income disparities, whether it's racial disparities, as well as looking at root causes of how healthcare and hunger are connected. We try to bring all these voices to the table to push for one mission, and that's to move policies that will put us closer to the pathway of ending hunger and malnutrition here in the States and globally. Most of our members are US-based organizations, but a lot of our members are multinational, have a multinational presence.
Right.
And they range from large organizations, large corporate partners, as well as to small anti-hunger groups who may have a small shop of 10 or so people in their organization. So we work as a coalition, and as a coalition, we really want to identify what are those main priorities that all our members have, and where do we see them aligned and kind of cross paths, and we pull those priorities out and lift those up as our policy priorities to put before Congress. And so, like what we're working on right now is to improve child nutrition programs, particularly access to school meals for children here in the United States. Particularly as it relates to when you look at what the economic impact of what the COVID pandemic has done to many of our communities. And now that you see the rise in inflation, gas prices, food prices across the board, we want to make sure that school systems, school districts, and communities have the resources they need to continue to feed kids throughout the school year, throughout the summer months, because those are the times, because oftentimes, particularly for low-income kids, that is where they find access to a full meal.
At school,
at
right?
School.
Yeah.
So we want to ensure that they have those available. We're also working to improve and modernize the WIC program. The WIC program that many people know is the basic supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. It essentially serves as a healthcare and nutrition resource for pregnant women and children all the way up to the age of 5. And it really serves as a head start for kids to get the proper nutrition that they need to be able to not only survive, but also thrive and become really help become positive, serve as a positive reinforcement for a lot of those kids as they go into the school years. And so when you imagine like a child who has access to strong WIC programs in their primary years, as they start to go into school, they're plugged into the school lunch, school breakfast programs. Those children are more likely to be able to do better in school, which in turn more likely to have more positive outcomes as an adult. Yep. So you start to see how nutrition really plays a role in creating productive citizens. Even on the global side, we are working hard to increase the investment of maternal child nutrition programs globally, whether it's from a humanitarian assistance perspective, as well as from a food aid and development perspective as well. Again, as you know, because of the pandemic and the economic impact that we're seeing of climate change and other global occurrences, the war in Ukraine, all that has put a strain on our global food production, global food prices, and access to food globally. And you're starting to see an potential increase of hunger and malnutrition in some of the poorest countries around the world. And it's our goal as the Alliance to End Hunger to raise a red flag to ensure that our policymakers are advocating resources towards ending hunger in those most desperate countries. You have close to 800 million people in the world who are severely undernourished. And because of the pandemic and as well as the war in Ukraine and Russia, there could be an additional 40 million more people who are at risk of severe hunger as a result of that. And so it's our goal to ensure that there's humanitarian resources are available so that we do not increase child malnutrition and hunger across the poorest and most vulnerable of our citizens. And we want to ensure that there's resources available so that those who are producing food, those smallholder farmers of the world, those who are producing food to feed the world, have the resources they need to continue to produce, continue to have sustainable agriculture, regardless of what the conflict may be, whether it's man-made or whether it's something that's done through climate change or what have you.
Right. Eric, it's fascinating. There is no listener to this episode right now that can't see the effects of food insecurity in their community, right? Anywhere, small town, large city, here in the U.S., around the world. So it was so important that we are educated as to the work you do. And of course, its importance to everything else, as you put it so well. It's more than just food insecurity. It's a barometer of so many issues of economic health and health access and everything else. So I cannot wait to unpack how you attack the complexity of literally a fundamental global issue. But the question our listeners are asking right now probably is, all right, I want to know how Eric got into this work. And so maybe why don't you tell us just a couple highlights. What led you to the work you're doing now?
So my role is pretty organic. I started my professional career on Capitol Hill, working as a congressional staffer. I worked on Capitol Hill for 2 years. I worked for two members of Congress from Georgia. I started with Congressman Sanford Bishop, who's in South Georgia, and then Congressman John Lewis, who represented the Atlanta area. Many folks remember John Lewis as a civil rights icon, marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was a speaker at the March on Washington, as well as the March on Selma, from Selma to Montgomery. And he was a civil rights icon. So I worked with him for a number of years, and it was during that time that, as a legislative aide, where you start to see people coming in to meet with the members of Congress. They're talking with members, giving them policy advice, asking them to support certain bills, asking them to vote a certain way. And it was during those 7 years where I realized that at some point, that's where I want to be. I want to be that person that's behind the scenes that has the influence to be able to talk to a member of Congress, talk to that member of Congress staff, and talk with them about policies that impact people on an everyday basis and get them to support those policies and push for policies that help to improve the lives of people.
Nice.
So after my time on Capitol Hill, it was time for me to kind of be ready to move into the private sector, make quote unquote a little bit more money as a young person with a new family. I decided I wanted to start becoming a lobbyist. I didn't just want to work for anybody. I still wanted to work for organizations that were improving the lives of others, making this world a better place. So I started my lobbying career at a firm that specialized in working with nonprofit organizations. The goal was to help those nonprofit organizations raise money so that they could essentially continue to do the great works in their communities and around the world. And so I spent 7 years with a company, ultimately becoming their vice president of government affairs, I think becoming one of their youngest VPs and the only African-American vice president of that firm at that time, lobbying and representing organizations, small and large, small organizations that were doing work around with young boys and girls who were quote unquote at risk, but helping them with programs that help them develop computer skills, other technical skills that allowed them to go to college, earn degrees, help their families, things like that. I worked for large school systems, helping those school systems with infrastructure dollars. I represented cities, municipalities across the board. All these were nonprofit organizations that were doing great work in their communities, and right. I did that for 7 years. During that time, after the 7-year stint, I was interested in instead of having multiple bosses working for a number of clients, and
right,
I kind of got tired of that new client hustle, if you will. I decided to work for a single organization, and that's where I started getting into the anti-hunger and poverty community and atmosphere. I worked for an organization that was actually a faith-based organization called Bread for the World at the time. And I was their government relations director, where I essentially led their advocacy agenda and their lobbying or the government relations portfolio. And we worked on a number of issues related to food security, nutrition, and poverty. And that's where I really started to see this is my niche. This is the lane that I really enjoy talking about, because you start to realize you're starting to advocate for legislation, issues, and policies that really are impacting people's daily lives and getting to the root causes of hunger, the root causes of poverty.
Not just the symptoms, right? Not just treating the symptoms anymore, right?
Exactly. And so after doing that for 7.5 years, really enjoying that work, I wanted to take a stab at corporate work, working for a higher education company, traveling between the United States and the Caribbean, doing work in the Caribbean where we were able to help build schools, help to improve infrastructure dollars in the local region, building partnerships there, as well as pushing to increase medical education, improve medical education access to disadvantaged U.S. students here in the United States. I still felt that passion about going back into and working around food security, working around hunger and nutrition. And that's where the opportunity of the Alliance to End Hunger came aboard. The Alliance is really the sweet spot where you're working with multiple sectors, multiple groups, whether it's, like I said before, whether it's corporate sector to the nonprofit sector to faith-based community to universities. And so it allowed me to kind of bring all those different experiences and strengths to the table and really talk about how addressing hunger and nutrition impacts the goals that your individual organizations want to accomplish, and how joining us will help lift up not only the work that you're doing as an organization, but also help you'll be at the table with a diverse group of other partners to push policymakers and allow policymakers to really see that the goals of ending hunger doesn't just belong to a food bank, or doesn't just belong to a church group or an anti-hunger organization.
Right.
That everybody cares about this issue, and this is something that we demand our policymakers to change. And so I've been at this role as the executive director of the Alliance to End Hunger for a little over a year and a half. I started in November of 2020, so I was brought on during the midst of the COVID pandemic, so in a virtual,
right. Yeah, I was going to ask you about
setting.
that. Yeah.
Right. And I'm happy to be here. It's one of the places where I say it's one of the few times in your work life where you wake up every day excited about the work you're doing. It's like I kind of don't use my lobbying arm as much as I used to. Now it's more about building relationships, doing opportunities such as this, where we get to talk about our organization and the work we do, and also help lift up the message and lift up the goal of ending hunger. And showing people that there's a possibility that we can actually make this happen.
Yeah, well, I can. It's very clear and evident the enthusiasm, the energy you bring to this cause, and it's, of course, great, to see someone who is in their sweet spot. Literally, it sounds like you are professionally. Interesting, though, you said that maybe advocacy is not among the skills and experiences you bring to this new role. Is there what skills and experiences are you currently utilizing most? For somebody listening, thinking, all right, what do I need to be ready to do when I get to a role like Eric's? But you're saying maybe not as much advocacy.
Well, it's not as much as the direct lobbying as I used to.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha.
Because we have a team that does that. Like I have a very strong team that serves as the boots on the ground on Capitol Hill. My job is to really talk about, and it's more like what I used to do at my old firm, where you are talking to potential members and recognizing what the goals and the mission and the purpose that those individual organizations are looking at wanting to accomplish, and why joining the Alliance to End Hunger will help you accomplish those goals. So we may talk to an organization that's doing great work, serving meals every day, doing great work in building relationships with large and small food banks, and serving thousands and millions of meals a day to families who are struggling to put food on the table, right? But they also realize that they can't food bank their way out of hunger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They know that it's going to take policy change to actually really create the long-term changes that we want to see done.
Yep.
But they also realize that they can't do it alone. So they're looking for partners who are willing to put their resources on the table, bring their major stakeholders to the room, and advocate to policymakers about why improving access to school lunch, school breakfast programs is important.
Yeah.
Right. And it may not be what they
articulate that. Yep.
Right. And it may not be the thing that they do every day, but they're looking for groups who are at the table who want to push that agenda forward. And so the Alliance to End Hunger kind of serves as that one-stop shop where they can join the Alliance and be in the same room with a corporate partner, be in the same room with a faith-based partner. And when I say faith-based, I mean across all faiths. We have Christian, Muslim, and Jewish members who are organizations who are part of the Alliance. We have corporations who are part of the Alliance, ranging from multinational companies like Cargill and Amazon to small organizations like Food Finder. And in the middle, you have the Feeding Americans of the world, Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, March of Dimes, Meals on Wheels, AARP. That level of diversity coming to the table to say, policymakers, we need you to put resources towards this program and towards this initiative. We need you to prioritize ending hunger. White House, we need you to convene a conference that specifically is set to end hunger by 2030. Those are all the different things that as a coalition, we've been able to advocate to our policymakers and to actually get accomplished, or at least on the verge of accomplishing.
Right.
And so going back to, I think your initial question is, you know, that is the level, that is the kind of like the skill set that I'm using now as a executive director of the Alliance to End Hunger, where and every now and then I do get to go and meet with Hill staffers and meet with members of Congress
Right.
and
Back to
kind of
your
back to my initial
lobbying days. Yeah.
back to my lobbying days. So any given day, and as I said before, how nonprofit leaders are wearing multiple hats. Any given day, I'm talking to major donors or potential donors about why they need to support us in our efforts to build our and strengthen our capacity, strengthen our capabilities of providing a strong impact in this policy world. To potential members and current members, thanking them for their support of the Alliance, thanking them for their membership within the Alliance, and talking specifically about what can we do together to end hunger, to address malnutrition, and to address poverty, and address other root causes of hunger, to potential members and saying, okay, I know what you've been doing on your own. Joining our coalition will also help you, not only allow you to be a part of this mission of what we're trying to do, but it also will help amplify and show policymakers of the work that you're doing as an organization.
Yes.
And improve your brand. And then by the end of the day, I'm on a virtual call with the Hill staffer, asking them to support $300 million for global nutrition programs so we can provide increased efforts to do emergency, ready to use therapeutic foods for families that are overseas in Yemen who are facing near like famine conditions, to improving our food aid, to talking about our national WIC program and national school meals program. So all that happens within right. All that
time
happens
you wake up to when you go home, you could have all that, right?
Exactly. All that happens, like they say, we do more, and like they say in the military, we do more in one day. All that happens between 8:30 and 5:30 when I have to finally walk away and actually pick up my kids.
It's remarkable. And let me just say this. One, I think a couple things, takeaways I have, if I'm a listener. One, your ability to not only get the work done, but to keep an eye on the root cause issue, in which you're very good at articulating. And I think regardless of the organization someone's listening and they work with, there's probably a similarity. You got to get the work done, right? There's the symptoms, but also there's a root cause. But let me ask you this, Eric. I'm amazed at the complexity of the work you're doing, and wonder about when you just started this during the pandemic. How did you organize the first 90 days, the first 6 months? A lot of our listeners are thinking about, all right, if I jump into a new job, how did you approach this new job? Was there a plan there and you kind of jumped in and started running it, or were you having to assess and implement as soon as you arrived?
It was assess and implement. I mean, because we were in an organization when I arrived, we were in the midst of a transition period. The Alliance to End Hunger started with had a leader that was the leader of the Alliance for over 20 plus years, helped create the Alliance to End Hunger. This leader was retiring or did retire early, I think 2019, maybe 2020. And I came on board in November. So we had a temporary executive director. The current executive director at the time was leaving as well to move to other opportunities, and actually now is on my board. And so we were in a transition period. So when I came on board, our board of directors, they really wanted the Alliance to really strengthen its advocacy capacity, to become a more impactful voice on Capitol Hill, to basically raise its chops in the lobbying side of things. While
right up your alley, right?
That's right. Exactly. Show that we actually have an impact, and show that we actually have an impact in this policy change within this policy, within the policy change agenda. And so that's why I was brought on board. But at the same time, we were in the process of, we wanted to create a new strategic plan. So we did this all virtually. We went through a series of those first few months creating a new strategic plan. That was like more of a 3-year plan. It really puts us into a new, hopefully by the end of 2025, puts us in a new direction where we have strengthened our fundraising capabilities, have improved our communication apparatus, as well as strengthen our actual our impact around advocacy. And so we developed a new strategic plan. Now we're implementing that strategic plan. We've created new fundraising strategies. We're in the process of redeveloping our website, so that should be coming online by the fall. And I've also have increased our staff. We are still a small organization, but we have grown from a whopping 5 staffers to a strong and robust staff of 8.
Wow.
So we are a very small but mighty team.
Yes,
but I
indeed.
would say that, and this is all in while we're still trying to work in this new virtual / hybrid setting. So there's been some staffers who I've only seen maybe twice in my 18 months of being here.
Wow.
One of my staffers I haven't physically seen since I've been here. We see each other through Zoom.
Yeah.
And there's some staff I see more regularly. So we've done all this in the new hybrid function. But what we have been able to do is use the technology to really make our work even stronger, to improve our effectiveness. So where we would do convenings, we are often seen as convening where we're bringing all these national partners to the table.
Sure.
Pre-COVID, they would spend resources to fly to DC, spend a day and a half in DC in a boardroom, talking to leaders, in one setting. At that time, you could only maybe at best you would be able to get 50 to 75, maybe to 100 people in a room to talk to a elected official or a key administrator at a time, right? Now through our use of new technology, Zoom, what have you, we're able to bring in any given moment. We may have a briefing or a convening or a some type of conference where we're bringing 300 to 400, 500 people into the room, registering 700 plus people to be a part of an event. And then we record our event so that way it lives on our website so people still are able to access it throughout the year. So with that, we're able to expand our message more. Those people who did not, or those organizations that did not have resources to fly somebody into Washington, D.C. are now able, all they have to do is click onto a Zoom link. And so when we have our annual conference every year, rather than paying hundreds of dollars to fly to D.C. and be in a hotel, now they're paying $25, $50 to register for a conference and click a link.
Efficient, right? Effective and efficient.
Right. And they're still having that same level of access to a key administrator or a key elected official, doing breakout sessions, all these different capacities and things that we're able to do. So
love that.
So we've been able to take advantage as a small organization, with a very small budget. We've been able to effectively take advantage of this new technology to reach more doors, to reach out to more people. And to increase our message and increase our brand.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously none of us wanted the pandemic, which has exacerbated things like food insecurity. I'm sure you would agree, but you looked for the silver lining, right, of the efficiency of Zoom and so forth. I wonder, Eric, when you got into the big chair of the Alliance, anything surprise you? You knew what you were getting into in many respects, but I wonder for those thinking, all right, I'm debating whether I go for the executive role. What about when you arrived? Anything surprise you?
Well, for me, what surprised me was how great my team is. Obviously, when you're going into a new role, particularly in a new role as the executive, and particularly when you have a team that's already there, sometimes you have to convince people to believe in your mission and believe in your vision. And I've been blessed so far to have a team that was hungry for that change, that has been supportive of me from day one. And there's always every now and then challenges that you are dealing with, but I have not had challenges that have been a detriment to me being able to do my job, me being able to support them in their job, and for us to be able to live out the mission that we as an organization want to do. There's been a lot of buy-in to the mission that we have seen. And there's been a lot of support by the board. When I talk to other executives, And so, I've heard horror stories that people have had with their different board of directors.
Yeah, me too.
I am fortunate to have a board that's very, very supportive of us as an organization and as me as a leader. And that has been very heartfelt and very appreciated, particularly as someone who's new to this level of leadership. This is my first time being the head of any organization
Right.
in this capacity. And so I've been blessed to have a board that has shown me some grace, as well as have been offering mentorship and support in professional development, support in providing advice, and support in allocating resources to the organization. So I have to say that I am spoiled right now in my role, and spoiled in right now how we are being able to be successful.
To your credit, and as you pointed out, you got a great team around you, great board, and that's of course what every nonprofit leader aspires to have. That leadership, not just at the top, but those that are supporting you. How did you do so? How were you so effective in conveying your vision? Because you're right, you're the new guy. People are wondering, all right, what's he going to be like? What is his kind of message going to be? So did you literally kind of focus one by one on your team and board members, or were there certain ways that you were able to hit the ground running so effectively?
It's an interesting question. So I think from my perspective, my personal experience is just because I was already in the anti-hunger space, I had a reputation of being very aggressive, assertive, and hungry,
Yep.
if you will. But also,
no pun intended, right?
but exactly right, really. But also seen as a collaborator, and so I think coming in with that level of reputation, I think has given me the opportunity to basically live out my personality through the work we do. So I think, Pat, if I can answer your question, I think I've been able to talk to our team as a whole, and as well as building strong relationships individually with folks, and try to teach them and guide them in what I like to see things done, but also listen, be value in listening. What you have to realize as a leader is that you hire people, you bring people on board because they're able to do the work that you don't either have time to do or have the capacity to really understand in depth, right?
Right.
And so you trust them in the work that they do. You trust them in their advice, and you let them be great. And so what I try to do is say, okay, what type of boss would I want to have in my, what type of boss, where have I seen great bosses and horrible bosses, and where do I want to live in that space, somewhere in between, right? You want to
Great way to put it.
You want to be a person that builds with good relationships with your team, but you also need to, be able to recognize that there is an authority level, and at the end of the day, you have to make the final decision. But you value the expertise that team brings to the table. You try to listen to what everyone has to say and offer. And then at the end of the day, you have to make the decision what you think is best for that organization. And sometimes your team, some team members may agree with you, and sometimes they may disagree with you. But oftentimes what team members at least will respect is that they have the ability to be heard.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
That's where I try to have it. If I feel that there is some level of tension somewhere, I have that one-on-one conversation with that team member and hearing them out. Sometimes they change. Sometimes we find a level of compromise within the middle, or sometimes, there may be times where I may completely hear what that person say, and they, at the end of the day, they made a better point, and we go in that direction. And then there are times that we have to go in my direction. But what they understand is that I've heard them out. We've had a chance to talk it through. And then at the end of the day, this is a decision that we as a collective have to make. Me personally, I also am about opportunities to let your team shine.
Yeah.
So I often say it's not about Eric Mitchell. People don't join the Alliance to End Hunger because of Eric Mitchell. People join the Alliance to End Hunger because of the mission of the organization, and because of the impact that the organization has and the benefit that the organization has to its membership. And so what I do is I often try to find opportunities where I'm taking the back seat or the second chair.
Yeah.
I'm either allowing my member organizations to shine or my individual staff to shine and be seen and heard. And so that is also good as well, because what you see is that, particularly for staff that are they're in the middle part of their middle stages of the career, early points of the career, they're looking for learning opportunities, professional development opportunities, and opportunities to grow. And even within an organization, not everybody can come in as a senior level policy person or the ED, but even within the level of role that you are there for a reason. You have an expertise and a value to bring. So it's my job to identify what those values are and allow you to shine on those. I think that's another way that's been another way for my team to really have buy-in to the mission of my vision, as well as the mission of the organization.
So well put, Eric. Yeah, and clearly that's a wonderful illustration of your leadership, and something I think our listeners can really consider is how they can apply it into their world. And let me shift gears real quick and ask you a tactical question, because I'm struck by literally the hundreds, if not thousands, of relationships you're managing, from congressional members to alliance members to staff to board and everything. How do you stay organized? Are you a to-do list guy, a calendar guy, or what are some ways because I mean, man, you could work 24/7. So how do you organize and prioritize all the stuff on your plate?
I am a calendar guy. I often tell people, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So if you so everything goes on my calendar, and then from there I prioritize. I'm a firm believer in deadlines, and that's something I've learned over the years from different bosses and leaders I've had, is set expectations of when things need to be done. Ask the question, when do you need this by? That's a firm question. And then go from, okay, when do you need this by, to when is it needed? You know what I mean? Because those are two different scenarios. And then, so being overly, to over communicate is key. So I'm a firm believer in putting things on calendars, putting things by deadlines, target deadlines, and then marking check-ins. Okay, how is this going? Where are you? Are you on par for this particular thing to be done? That way it gives that person the opportunity to say, and then also the second part is, what help do you need in getting things done? I think we as people tend to try to put a lot of things, and I've made this mistake in the past, where you feel like you need to carry the burden and do it all, right? And what you find in life and in work is that accomplishment gets done whether you're the only one doing it or whether you have a team of people helping you do it. And your job, you don't get hired or fired based on how hard you work to get something done, oftentimes.
Right.
So what I try to tell people is, work smart. If there's something that you need help on, tell us, so that way we can reassign or do what we need to do to make sure the thing gets done. Because what I judge people on is whether or not it's been done, whether or not the ball has been dropped. I could care less about the ins and outs, how it got done. Right. I just want to see the end result. And so that's where I hold my team to.
Yeah, love that.
So yeah, and those are the things that I've learned in life and throughout my work experience.
Well, yeah, I'm delighted you have shared your experience, and it has translated into lots of advice and words of wisdom for our listeners. And for that, I'm grateful. And Eric, last question, basically, for somebody listening, like, wow, I'd like to do what Eric's doing someday. And I'm struck by one piece of advice I took away, is that, I guess we all can be more engaged in our local kind of politics, if you will. I mean, so many of these issues, right? You're working at the global level and the national level, but is there any other advice? If somebody says, Eric, I want to do what you do, what advice would you offer them?
And so going back to like the initial part of this conversation where we talk about the importance of advocacy, I've always been a person who's passionate about using your voice to make a change, no matter how small or how large that change is. So I think as nonprofit leaders, but this really goes out to those nonprofit leaders. The art of nonprofit is really about your organization carrying a certain mission to change, to improve on something. There's something there that you saw a gap in and you wanted to be a part of closing and making that gap happen. Well, at the end of the day, everything is impacted by policymakers, whether it's your local council member or mayor or your member of Congress or the president of the United States. There's been some level of policy that is either the reason why you're there in the first place. In other words, it's what caused this particular gaps that you see,
yep.
or there's some type of policy that will help fix those changes. And my first congressional boss often said, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Right.
So we have to remember to always be that squeaky wheel. Yes, it's important for us to do the day-to-day. It's important for us to make sure that the lights are turned on, that the bills are paid. It's important for us to make sure that the people that we're there to partner with are being fed. In other words, the mission of the organization is there to feed people. It's important to ensure that people are fed. But it's also to think deeper. Okay, we often try to say in the nonprofit world, it's our job to work ourselves out of business. We know how sometimes that could be, for those of us who are who live in the policy world, we tend to be a little sarcastic. It's like, yeah, right. Who's there to work themselves out of business?
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day, you want to become a nonprofit leader because you really do feel passionate about this particular cause. So what can we do to help in that cause in the first place? And that's where policy plays. And then that's where advocacy plays, because those who are spending time to get in front of their elected officials on any particular issue, those are the people who, at the end of the day, when those policymakers are trying to make a vote, those are the people that they are going to remember. We had a conversation with a chairperson of a major committee a few months ago to talk about child nutrition waivers. And this particular chairperson was, she was supportive of what we said, but she said, I need you to get the other party, the Republican Party at the time, to support this as well. So we went and talked to that person and that staff as well. We need you to get these waivers passed. We need to ensure that these waivers, these child nutrition waivers, are done before the end of June. And that person said, we support you, but we got to make sure, there's all these other different things that they were saying that they hope that they want to ensure that this doesn't that this doesn't impact. So we continue to talk to all the people who are in charge. And just yesterday, a bill was introduced that actually will extend the waivers that we are pushing to support. The bill was introduced by the chairperson we talked to, their ranking Republican, as well as the chairperson on both the House and Senate chambers. So it's a bipartisan bill. And now it's our goal to get this bill passed. So our next step is going to be pushing members of Congress to pass this bill. And so all that to say is it took advocacy to make that.
Yes.
It took advocacy to make that happen. And it's going to take advocacy to continue to make that happen. And so that is the level of impact that the voices need, that elected officials need, where your voice can be an added value to help move that needle forward.
Beautifully said. You started with it, you ended with it, and I know that our listeners are contemplating right now, how can they bring their voice to the issues? As you said, the issue that brought them to the nonprofit sector and to leadership is one they can utilize their voice even more. So, Eric, for that and all of the wonderful advice you brought today, I'm grateful. I've got one more parting gift, however, I need from you.
So the book that I am currently reading, and I would recommend this to all leaders, is The End of Fundraising, and it's by Jason Saul. And what makes this book interesting is like it's teaching us techniques and ways about how we get away from the feeling that we're begging for money to really more about selling the our impact.
Yep.
So again, it goes back to what I was saying before about how your people want to support something that's making a difference. And people want to buy into the mission that you are trying to accomplish. So what we do is talk about the success and the impact that we are able to have, the benefit that our organization is able to have, and basically give the funder or that potential member the impression you'd be crazy not to be a part of our cause.
Right.
And so it turns the head around. It turns the level of power around.
Love that. And that's a great addition to our book recommendation list. So thank you for that. And as promised, Eric, we're going to encourage every listener to check out the show notes for this episode because we're going to have links to all the information. But Eric, where can people go to find out more about you and the great work you're doing?
AllianceToEndHunger.org is a very long address, but it's easy to remember. AllianceToEndHunger.org, where you will learn more about the Alliance, learn more about our members, and also learn more about some of our policy change priorities and how you can support us and maybe be a part of it.
That's fantastic. I'm going to absolutely encourage, we all need to better understand the issues of food insecurity and that you're a champion for literally around the world. So for all that, Eric, thank you again for joining me on the path.
Thank you. Thank you, Patton, for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Eric as much as I did and came away with some practical ideas that can not only guide you on your professional journey, but maybe help your nonprofit organization be more effective in its role as an advocate for whatever cause is the focus of your mission. Don't forget about the show notes. They are available on our website, pattonmcdowell.com. Just go to the podcast page and you can find out more about Eric, the Alliance, as well as how you can get more involved. Remember, this is episode number 164. As always, please share this episode with somebody else on the path. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe. Just go to the podcast page again at pattonmcdowell.com and you will see the follow button. Yes, follow equals subscribe, and it will link you to all of the primary podcast platforms. Don't miss out on any of our weekly episodes. They come out every Thursday. And if you like this one, click on the episodes button. It's at the top of the page, and you can scroll through thumbnails of some of our most popular episodes or search by topic or guest name. Thanks again for all you're doing in the nonprofit sector, especially right now, and keep up the good work for causes that are most meaningful to you. I'll keep bringing you content that can help you do it even better. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time on The Path.